Hey everybody, it's Ken from Right From Wrong. I wanted to try something a little different today. Thinking about what the purpose of this channel was and what my intentions were. It was to help, mostly beginners or beginners to get over that hump to become, you know, intermediate to, hopefully eventually working writers. Again, I've always said I am not to that point yet, so I'm trying to get there and help people where I can. But I'm by no means a professional or an end all be all for instruction on how to do this business or this craft 100% correctly. But I do have 20 plus years of experience of writing novels, screenplays. I've written, a dozen or more features now. But I wanted to get back to what my purpose was and get back to the basics of what I really wanted to do this channel, and that was to help beginners. So, and then that's mainly the people that I can help at this time. I can't really help professionals at this point because I'm not there yet. But I do want to get back to, I've given lists on resources that have helped me in the past. I've given information on contests. I've given information on websites and videos and channels that have helped me. But one of the things I haven't really done yet is actual writing, like giving instructions on how to start a screenplay. So I wanted to start from the very beginning. I currently use Final Draft 11. I know they've had some updates since then, but I really like this version and I haven't had a need to upgrade yet. I know some of the later or more recent versions, I believe, have implemented some form of AI. I'm, again, not a huge fan of that, but again, it's not a selling point for me. If that's a selling point for you, maybe you want a newer version. But for me, Final Draft 11, I currently have it on my laptop, I have it on my PC, and I also have a Final Draft app on my phone that I can write on. But I just wanted to start from the very beginning. Like, if I was starting a new screenplay today, which actually I did about 2 days ago, what steps would I go through? And if you've never written a screenplay before, maybe this is a good place to start. Hopefully, you've read some screenplays to get a feel for the format. Hopefully, you've looked at least one or two books about screenplay format and formatting. But if not, or even if you have, let's just jump into it and let's see how we do. Again, this is Final Draft 11. I've opened a new screenplay, a blank one. I'm currently in dark mode. I like that. It's easier on my eyes. You don't have to use dark mode, but I prefer it. But yeah, let's just jump in and see how we would start this bad boy. What is the first thing I would do? Personally, I like getting my screen set up, uh, like the parameters set for the project I'm working on. Let's just say I would document and title page. Right there, you see your script title written, the first right on, if anything, and then your contact information in the lower left. After a few years of doing this, I've noticed most of this is probably unnecessary. Let's just make up a new one. Let's say the script I'm working on, a hard, let's go with, not just popped in my head. I'm not hungry. And you just write your name. In case you don't know, my name is Kenneth Collins. It's currently not based on anything. I'm the sole writer. It's a spec script. We do it. Other information on here. Down here, I've started putting my emails, and that's it. I don't generally put ad numbers anymore. Everything's pretty much done through email. Also, when you do contests and things like that, they generally don't even, or so some my name entered into a contest, I'll erase my name and just leave the title. Okay. You can close out of this and this, just your regular blank screenplay page. This time it's titled screenplay in the corner. So I'm going to do save as. You can just ignore some of those names there because those are projects that have not come to be at this point. All right. So one thing I like is this script length. However, at least on my screen and on my other computer, it goes off the change target script length. Personally, as a spec, if I'm 100, I've probably formatted it incorrectly. I shoot for about, makes the math a little easier. I do tend to follow the word when I'm plotting my stories. I try not to, hold it to a detriment and lack of, but I do use that for purposes mostly, just making one and Act 3 aren't too short or too long. And then right here, it still cuts off some of it. So if you go into View, I believe it is, Zoom Story Map, I'll put 50%. Now I can see 1 through 100. It gives me, I can see what percentage of the draft I'm generally going to complete. So now I've got my screen set up. I'm in dark mode. You don't have to use that. I've got my length at the top. There's one more thing I do before I start typing, and that's going into Document and Mores and Continues. I turn off automatic character continues. That just adds extra continues at the ends of character lines that used to be the norm, and now they're not used as often. It's not, a set in stone rule. There aren't a lot of rules, is the one thing I've learned in the last 20 years. But there are some conventions. People are expecting to see certain things. They're not going to miss those continueds. There will still be other continueds, like at the bottom of pages, but the automatic character continues can be turned off. Okay, so I've got my title. I've got my target length at the top. I'm in the mode I want to type in. Now it's time to get creative. Now it's time to type. But if you've never done this before, what do? A lot of people start with fade in. Personally, I don't. I know that's just my preference, and it's not necessary. I've never had anybody call me out on it. Most movies, or at least the ones that I envision, or the ones that I write on spec, I imagine them starting right away. Like, you have a black screen, bam, movie starts. That's just me. That's my preference. I think it could be a wasted line kind of at the beginning. If I read a script and it doesn't have fade in at the beginning, honestly, I don't even think about it. What I want to see is, and this is what you want to kind of do as you're writing the entire script, is imagine the visual that you want. You picture an audience member in the theater. They're sitting in the seat. The lights goes down. All the, AMC, Magic, whatever commercials with Nicole Kidman, they're gone. Lights dim. Here comes your movie. What is the first visual that you want them to see? And generally, I think it's a mistake a lot of people make. It's a mistake I've done in the past, is you try to start kind of slow. You're picturing like the all that come up, but that's for another time. That's not necessarily for you, and that's not for right now. You want to get people started on the story. You want to give them a visual. You want to give them something interesting. That's generally the best hook you can get to keep people reading, to keep people interested. If you start slow, it's just and it's hard to overcome that lack of a quality first impression. So what you want to do first, in most cases, again, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to craft, you can toy with the conventions a little bit. However, if you're doing this for the first time, and maybe you're new with Final Draft, you're new with the format, you're going to want to get familiar with your different lines and what they mean, especially in Final Draft, because it'll do most of the formatting for you, which is great. You generally want to start with a scene heading. Almost always start with a scene heading, in my opinion. But you want to give them a visual. What do we see? Movies, killer donuts. What are we going to open up? Let's open up with a donut killing someone. How about that? That'll get people hooked. Then we'll meet the protagonist and all that. But first, let's start with a little bit of a teaser opening. So where is it going to start? This is kind of corny. It's kind of, generic. We're doing this kind of as a joke, but we still want to take the formatting seriously, because that's what I'm trying to show here. So let's do interior. INT. If you hit tab, it'll take you down to the next thing. We don't want to do that. We want smart type kind of to take over. INT, you see it kind of goes away. If you tab at that point, it keeps you on the same line. So we're going to do interior. If you're not familiar with the the scene headings, you're going to generally start with interior, INT, or exterior. That is going to be where the camera is. And we don't want to give too many, stage directions, camera directions. But where do you imagine this happening? If you're outside looking in, you're going to be exterior, donut shop, and then in your action line, you can describe, through the window we see, whatever. But we're going to do it interior. So we're going to put interior, donut shop, night. Okay, and generally that's what you want to do. You want to do day or night. I've seen other things, like if you're in space and there's no particular day or night, you can really just put exterior space. You don't have to get specific with it. I've seen fluorescent or artificial lighting used. Maybe if someone's underground in a bunker, but it's lit, I've seen artificial. Generally, you're going to use day or night. I've seen afternoon, golden hour is overused a lot. Those are harder for production and they're overused. And eventually, if you get to the shooting script stage, you're probably going to have to change it to day or night anyway. So I try to make it as close to a shooting script without going into the, shooting scene numbers and stuff like that. Camera directions. I generally don't do that. So let's just start simple. We're going to start interior, donut shop, night. Okay, so what do we want to happen in this scene? We've given it a location, but we haven't really shown anything yet. And that's where you get your action lines. Action lines are going to be, they're also called description lines. They're going to describe what's going on in the scene. What are we seeing inside the donut shop at night? We also want to avoid using redundancies. So I'm not going to put the donut, I'm in all caps. We don't need to do that because that'll do the formatting for us. The donut shop is dark at night. No, we don't need to type that at all because we've already established that it's the donut shop at night. But what we could do, if we want to say that it's dark or that it's closed, we can put vacant, silent. Rather than saying it is empty, it is dark and quiet. Again, I think you want to be as concise as possible, as brief as possible, but still give it the same vibe. Also, with this being a potential horror comedy, B-movie maybe type horror thing, give it a little bit of your vibes, give it a little bit of your personality, a little bit of your voice is the big word that they use a lot. So you got donut shop, night, vacant, silent, maybe dark. Or one I used recently, I liked it. In what I used it, maybe it wouldn't be perfect here, but lit only by emergency lights. So I think that gives a visual. You've got your exit signs, the green or red or whatever lit up. Everything's quiet. Donut shop's closed. Rustling. Something moves behind the counter. Again, voice, you can kind of phrase this however you want, but these are action lines. That's mainly what I'm trying to illustrate here. You don't have to like my style or whatever, but this is one way to do it. Something moves behind the counter. Now, maybe we want to show that there's another character. We want to introduce a character at this point. Maybe someone is broken into the donut shop. Okay. Let's try to do that. Let's put, if you're not going to use the character in the future, I use a lot of these teaser type openings. You don't need to give these people names generally, because if you give a name on the first page, especially a long introduction, people are going to think that this is going to be someone we're going to follow and we need to remember information about them. In this case, I'm not going to do that. this is just a person for this opening sequence, and we're never necessarily going to delve into their past, other than maybe through some dialogue where they talk about what happens. I don't know. I'm kind of making this up on the fly, but it's more about illustrating the different lines and their usage. So we've got your scene heading, you've got your action lines, and now I'm just going to put burglar. Burglar, 30s, male, dressed head to toe in black with a crowbar. Now, one of my pet peeves, and I'll bring this up while I'm doing the action lines, but it's pretty much for every line. I don't like it when one word goes on to the next line. So if it was like that, burglar, 30s, male, head to toe, crowbar. A lot of people will probably just let this go and it won't affect anything. Personally, I don't like the hanging called orphans or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that. Also, in the dark, so I would just leave that out and go down to the next line. I've illustrated scene headings, I've illustrated the action lines, and right here we have a mild character introduction, all caps, description to be as detailed as the to be in the story. So where I'm literally just putting burglar. You see them, you're going to know that the person has broken in or is breaking in. Head to toe in black. Now we're going to do a dialogue line. In final draft, it's pretty intuitive. Knows after an action line is usually a character line. Somebody usually speaks. You're going to want to put the same way you've got it in your introduction. Draft will remember that and will keep, and you can always come back to it. When you hit enter after a character line, it is dialogue, because it knows if there's a character line being used, dialogue's almost always next. You can hit tab again. These are often overused, usually in place of an action line. And right now, as of April 15th, at the time of recording this, also a huge clue that it's been written with AI. If there's confusion, maybe if you've got a couple people talking and you want to clarify that he's saying it's not particularly funny, like it's not going to get picked up through reading it. I mean, generally you're going to want your jokes, you're going to want your humor and your characters to come through just by reading the dialogue. But if for some reason it's, maybe it's a bad joke or he's being sarcastic, you can do that once in a while as a parenthetical, but I would not do it all the time. By that point, your character should be known enough to the reader that they get the vibe that he is being sarcastic. But at this point, let's say I'm doing it as an example more than actual, I wouldn't do this. But burglar, maybe to himself. Just say there's nobody there. Now, we haven't shown anybody else, so it would be assumed that he is talking to himself. But how about this? No glazed. What self-respecting, if I could spell, respecting donut shop doesn't stock up on glazed? Now again, you hear me talking to myself while I'm doing it. When I'm by myself, I tend to do that too when I'm alone. I try to keep it to myself when there's people around. But again, I've got a little bit of one of these hanging on words here, the orphans. I don't like it. I mean, it's more of a personal preference. You can toy with these margins. I don't recommend it. Once people realize you're toying with the margins, they think you're playing with the page count and trying to fit things in. If you're new to this, you may not realize that one page of a properly formatted script equals about 1 minute of screen time. It won't always be that way based on the how much dialogue versus how much action, but you want it to kind of read through almost a minute per page. And once it's filmed, or it's going to be on screen for about 1 minute on average, not every page, but on average throughout the course of the script. So putting in and messing with margins and extra spaces and taking away spaces, it just gives the impression that you're playing with the length as opposed, to cover up for proper formatting. But in this case, for me, it's more of a personal preference. So I don't like these hanging out. I think it just looks worse on the page. No glazed. What's self-respecting donut shop doesn't stock up? Or how about doesn't have glaze? There we go. I mean, it basically means the same thing. I've shortened it slightly, and it looks better on the page. Again, personal preference. You can do it however you wish. So now that's an example of a dialogue line. You see how it formatted it differently. It's kind of centered, but not exactly, and it keeps it to that certain length and width. You don't want to have a lot of dialogue at one time. You can have monologues once in a while, but again, if you're going to do that, you got to make it worth it. It's got to be good, and you can often break them up with action lines because you got to think about what's on the screen at the whole time. So right now, all we've got is it's a quiet donut shop, dark, lit only by emergency lights. We hear a sound, something moves, burglar's there. Okay. Now, if he goes into a whole monologue, no glaze. What's self-respecting donut shop? I need glaze. They're my favorite kind. I'm glad I'm breaking into this place that they don't have glaze. Okay, maybe we can put all that dialogue. Maybe we can make it work. But what are we seeing? Is he just standing there talking to himself? Is he going through the cash register? Is he stealing the donuts? Is he doing something else? Is he tying up someone behind the counter? Like, give him an action to do if you're going to give him lots of dialogue. But in this case, we got him just saying he's no glaze. So obviously he's probably looking at the donuts in the glass. So, all right, so we're gonna go back to giving an action line. I'm gonna say burglar. Let's put Jimmy's open the cash register. Me personally, I like using fragments. I think it reads quicker, especially when you're doing action sequences. So burglar Jimmy's open the cash register, grabs the cash. Rather than saying burglar Jimmy's opened the cash register, he reaches in, he pulls out wads and wads of money, he shoves it in a bag. Like, we get it. I think all you need is grabs the cash. But then we got to have something interesting happen, right? Now, what do I want to do here? Some of these I don't use. Some of them are acts, more for TV. But let's just pretend this is a feature. So these are the main kind of lines right now. The main, yeah, we could do a different shot, transition. But again, you don't want to toy with them too much. You start getting a little cute with the transitions and the shots, and it just plays with the format. It doesn't look professional generally, and people overuse them is the biggest problem, I think. I personally, yeah, I'll throw 2 or 3 camera angles in there. I'll throw a couple we sees in there. And maybe this is a good time for that. Because you'll hear a lot where people say, don't use we see. You can definitely use we see, but you got to use it sparingly and know the situation. I use it in situations where the audience is seeing something that the character on the screen is not seeing. So maybe this is a good time for that. So he's grabbing the cash. We see a silhouette. If I could ever spell silhouette. Did I get it right? No, I did not. It's probably my most misspelled but yet most typed word in my stories. Silhouette. Got it. So we see a silhouette rise behind. Now, some people might put the burglar, but because we've introduced him as burglar, I like using that same thing. I use that kind of as the proper noun. So I'll put and capitalize it. We see a silhouette rise behind burglar. Do we use the ellipses? Do we use these? That's your choice. But be consistent and do it like intentionally and consistently. To me, ellipses is more of a pause. Me, the 2 dashes is like something's about to happen, get down to the next line. So we see a silhouette behind the burglar. Burglar turns and is face to face with, again, this is going to be dumb, but for examples, monster donut. Dun, dun, dun. Exclamation points, definitely can use them. Don't overuse them. I think that's the biggest thing about any formatting is use your voice, use, your creativity, toy with it a little bit, but don't overuse it and be consistent. And I think that applies to everything really in this. You want to be concise, but show your voice. And I think that's the best way to do it. So he turns to face monster donut, a 6-foot tall beast dripping with glaze. Should we make this irony? And sprinkles. And a gaping hole in its center, lined with fangs. Dun dun dun, we've got monster donut. Now, some people might put burglar. Generally, I'll put burglar screams. Again, some people don't like the all caps. I still do put all caps sometimes for sounds, mostly for screaming, gunshots, things like that. I don't do it for every sound. But as long as you're consistent and intentional. And now let's just say we're going to end our scene here, and we're going to do tab. You can tab again. If you start hitting a C over here, we're now in a transition line. So we're going to do cut to black, cut to. We can do a fade out. A fade out would be kind of odd. We can do a match cut, which is one of my favorite cuts. In screenwriting, the cut to is implied. We know we're going from one scene to the next, so it has to cut. But how you cut, again, sparingly and intentional. I'm going to do a match cut. Now, if you're not familiar with a match cut, it means they're going to try to match this up in editing. Now, as a screenwriter, we don't really have that power, but we can recommend it. We want to show that image as a spec script. We want to get the image in our head into someone else's head. So I'm going to show a match cut. I'm not going to use it a lot, but I will use it on this. So we've ended now with a burglar turning around, seizing the monster donut, screams. So now we're going to be exterior, large mansion, now family home, day, child screams in bouncy house. I don't know. 7-year-old's birthday party. Again, maybe not the best description, but you kind of get the visual, I think. So he turns around, sees the monster donut, screams, and cuts to a kid screaming in a bouncy house. If I want to be consistent, and I might put that in screen. Now, if this child is going to be used later, if it's somebody's kid that's a main character, I might put Maggie Smith, 7, female. I already put it. So at this point, I would put a child's birthday party. And then I'd go into further, detail, lines. But look at this. Page. Not even a full page. In the scene. Now, I just threw this together in different, better ways, but our little opening teaser for Killer Donuts. Let's just say you working for that day or, for the hour and you want to save what you got. There is an autosave feature, which I believe is defaults on. So, but I still always click save. Click save, click save. Yes, save it. Spell check. I've added it to my up here, but if it's not, I believe it's in document. Tools. I'm going to run the spell check. There isn't a whole anything. So we've went through headings, lines, character introduction. Got the, but this is dialogue. Some people won't use them. They'll just put a period, and that's fine too. Intentional and consistent. If you do that, I don't think anybody's going to gig you on anything. Burglar screams. I did that in caps. Did a cut. Normally I wouldn't put anything. It would just go from screams to the large family home. But in this case, I'm starting with a scream. I'm ending with a scream. I want to be a little, cinematic. Let's do a match cut. I'm not going to overuse that. I'm going to use that on this case. Mostly teasers. You can do stuff like that. So match cut 2, large family home, exterior day, Maggie Smith 7 screams in a bouncy house. So now, in theory, we're probably going to meet, our characters at this point. Someone's going to get a phone call. They found a body at the donut shop. Maybe it's an inspector, and this is the 4th pastry murder this month. I don't know, but so there we go. That is a good example of how to just start from scratch. And in just a few minutes, and with the talking and with making it up off the top of my head, I've almost got a page. So, and if you do a page a day, 365, without a leap year, you're doing 3 scripts a year. So, I mean, I don't knock anybody that says they don't have the time to write. I get it. My production has not been what I want it to be either. But they're 1 page a day, average. Some days you're going to do 10, some days you're going to do 0. If you average 1 page a day, that's 3 scripts a year. I mean, try to make the time. If you're serious about it, try to make the time. You could also put the fade in. Again, I'm not a big fan of using it. You do have to watch out a little bit with it does do the smart type. So you can hit something by accident and it might give you a thing or a format that you didn't want. If you find yourself, instead of this being a character line, it actually put it as an action line. That's right. All you gotta do is just click cursor somewhere in that line and then correct it. And Final Draft is pretty intuitive that it'll know what you want to do. If it does mess up, for instance, when I would copy Word files and paste them in here, it would probably get about 80% of the lines correct, but I'd still have to go through and maybe fix the dialogue or something like that. But it's still way better than having to retype it. So yeah, this is very, very basic beginner, a Final Draft, basic beginner of screenplay format. I highly recommend reading up on this if you're not familiar with the lines and what each one's job is. But yeah, this is Final Draft. Again, this is Final Draft 11. I'm a big fan of it. I haven't gone up to the more recent versions because this does everything I needed to do. There are some other features, for instance, like scene numbers and locking pages. As a spec writer, I haven't needed to really go beyond that yet. I do know some of it, but it's not something I do all the time. I think the first step is just getting into the program, getting words, getting scenes typed, getting that sand in the play, in the sandbox. Get that sand in there, and then make what you want to make. And because you can always cut it away, you can always chip something. I might change something. I might add something. Maybe here where the burglar he turns and is face to face with Monster Donut. Instead of him screaming, maybe the donut says something, and then I can just tab it in there and put Monster Donut. And then you eat glazed, do you? There you go. So he's like, oh, no glaze. What self-respecting donut doesn't have glaze? And bam, eaten by a glazed donut. I don't know. The irony, right? All right, and again, once you change something, make sure you save it, do your spell check, and you're good. All right, so I hope this helps. This is more geared towards beginners who aren't familiar with the screenplay format or just final draft in general. But I hope you learned something. I hope it maybe reinforces knowledge that you've already had. And I'd like to do this more often and go deeper into the to formatting and what we can do with this program, because there is a lot of other good features. Um, I know you can use the beat board. You can use it kind of like a bulletin board. Do like index cards. I think View does that. You can view it by where is it? Scene view. You got this where you can see the donut shop. You can rearrange the scenes this way. I think you can even edit them a little bit this way. You can give them titles, but generally you're going to be in cards. Hide story map. I don't want that. Yeah. So I'm going to save Killer Donuts, and maybe we'll continue this. Maybe I'll just keep this as an example. But I hope you learned something. This is Ken from Right from Wrong. And let me know if this is the kind of content you'd like to see. What I'd really like to do is in the future, I have a script that I wrote a long time ago that basically needs a full rewrite. And some of it is cringe. I mean, we didn't even use that word cringe when I wrote it. That's how old it is. And it's bad. It's bad to the point where I might want to use that as a training. So it's an actual script that I think the bones of are good, that the concept is really good, but my execution 20 years ago was garbage. I would like to do something with that, maybe do an online OBS type thing where I can correct it, maybe even live. I don't know if anybody would log in while I'm live, but if they did want to, they could, chat with me and we could discuss things online while I'm here editing, while I'm here working. But all right, have a good day, and see you next time.